personally, I'm taking a lot of this as positive. It at least gives me some hope. And we will see what actually materialized. Because, okay, step 1, you talked. Great. Step 2, walk. Welcome back, everyone. Welcome back. We have some things to discuss in the world of Phobies. This is actually stream number 2 on the day for me because my light. Like, why is the light not looking right? Because it got knocked over by accident and was sliding behind my monitor. A little brighter now. As is the future of Phobies. Why is that? When we finally got a communication, we'll say, a correspondence. It isn't really a patch, it's not an update, it is more of a promise of things to come, but to be perfectly blunt, that's way more than we had before, and I want to spend some time talking about it. So, as I said, welcome back, everyone. We also have, we'll see what we get here in our gift. Vendy's gift day 1, so I guess for the anniversary, which is officially, at the time of this recording, tomorrow. If you go and look at the official Phobies release date, we've always had in the past for the anniversaries, it's kind of been here or there. It isn't quite on the day. Obviously, for the first anniversary, we had the whole big Vendy hunt, and then last year we had something a little different. This year seems it's going to be even lower key and not quite as rambunctious as years past. But we do have the Phobies anniversary gift, so we're gonna take a look at this. We're going to hide this first, though. Spoiler alert for mere moments from now. But the Phobies anniversary gifts from the 7th to the 13th. Vendy is celebrating the 3rd birthday of Phobies with 7 days of surprises just for you. And me, I guess. From March 7th through March 13th, be sure to log in each day to receive your special in-game reward. Remember, each gift is only available for 1 day. So be sure to check in daily so you don't miss out. Refer to the time listed below if you live in a region that observes daylight savings time. Clocks spring forward this weekend. I was not aware of that, and this might be the worst way to find out. God damn it. That is awful. I did not know that was this weekend. I knew it was coming. Oh, that's a terrible way to find out that. Spring forward. But anyway, classic, exactly. I do have to let everybody know, as we're getting started, now that we have at least the stage set for our discussion, I am part of the content affiliate program. That means the Phobies team does in fact give me coffee for producing Phobies content, which if we ever get through the 50,000 things, hey, there's a boost this weekend too. And more offers. I get coffee, as you can see over there. I get coffee whenever not whenever I produce content, but for producing content for the Phobies team. We get the anniversary sale, as maybe evidenced by the 70,000 pop-ups that we have. I will say, what is this? Somebody, sorry, pal, I don't know who you are, so I will throw it out there. I did have somebody, I don't want to say argue with me, but they were making it a point that if you advertised Phobies to chess players, like say we got a big chess streamer to play Phobies, that every chess player would balk at the pop-ups from notifications, like they're all living in 1970 and they've never seen a pop-up on something ever for anything at any point in time, and they would immediately check out on the game. Don't get me wrong, there are people who do that, but I think it's really... You're not giving people enough credit that they live in the modern world, because everything has pop-ups now. Like, let's be real. Come on. It's the year of our Lord 2025. This is not new. But what is new is this. And I'm actually going to swap here so I can read it more readily. Can I move this over here without messing this up? All right, so that's not going to be terrible. So this is in the main Phobies Discord. If you missed it, this was announced earlier this afternoon, in fact, by Chew. My game plan for this, I've obviously already looked at it. I have some ideas on my thoughts. We're going to break it down. I'm probably going to go through it, pause, go through it, pause, go through it, pause. I'm not going to read the whole thing and do it because then we'd have to just go back and nobody's going to remember what the hell we're talking about. So we'll step through it together and we'll have the most lukewarm takes this side of the Mississippi or something. I don't know. We're winging it here. We're winging it here, chat. Hello, Phobies community. Already, I have my own qualms about community, but anyway. First and foremost, we want to take a moment to thank each and every one of you for your dedication, passion, and support over the past year. It's been an amazing journey for us with many plans for the upcoming year. All right. I know we're literally in sentence 1. Technically sentence 2 if you count the greeting, but I'm not. It is sentence 2. It is sentence 2. Officially sentence 2. There's a period there. Grammar has to be perfect. Anyway, it's been an amazing journey for us with many plans for the upcoming year. I am very curious what these many plans are. They do elucidate some of them. However, there are, like, the request list is light years long at this point. And that's not to knock the team. Every game has that because everybody wants something slightly different. And if you add them all up, even if they're contradictory, you end up with a long list. But there are issues with the game across many facets that, what are these many plans? And how are they being prioritized, I think is going to be the question. I'm going to probably be very critical, just to warn you up front as we're going through. But I think there is a light at the end of the tunnel for this, which is a breath of fresh air. So we continue. We couldn't have made it this far without you all, and it very much appreciate you all. Your feedback, enthusiasm, and love for the game have kept us motivated, and we are grateful for every player who continues to be part of this vibrant community. Whoever wrote this deserves a raise because, man, that is some buttery things I'm not going to say. Like, I appreciate the tone, and I appreciate the, for lack of a better way to put it, corporate speak. It's one of those, you have to say it, but there have been enough times in recent memory across a variety of platforms and scale that this sort of thing is skipped. So it is nice that it's there. I love that I've never played this game and I'm invested in hearing it. Oh, strap in. Strap in. So I will say, like, I personally hate this kind of stuff, like, just get to it, but I do think it is good that they put it here. I know I'm harping on something that nobody cares about, but I think it's good that they are putting in the effort to have these sort of platitudes and this little bit of flattery at the beginning. It could have just skipped everything, just saying. I posted in the Steam community announcement, but I asked returning players will ever not be some of all Fear 1 and not get giga punished for not knowing what 50% of the current phobies are. That would probably go into the many plans for the upcoming year part. I don't disagree with you, chat, that, like, it sounds great if you're an active player or you're planning on staying tangentially involved, but with no D-ranking system, you run into problems on both sides because and I know we're pausing here to digress, but if you do derank people, then it's possible for somebody who maybe was a whale, comes back, and then hasn't played for a while, and then they just body people at the low ranks. But you could adjust for that and, like, have them clear out quickly. If you don't derank them, then you run into the other problem where that potential whale that just took a break for whatever reason and comes back maybe would potentially be a whale again. And they just get bodied, and then they don't want to play. And you got to decide which is the least of those evils. Looking back on it, yeah, after you spent the money and you come back to it, it's a tough spot to be in. I think this will continue, but real quick, there need to be other systems besides ladder. There just have to be. There has to be other ways to play the game because the ladder is not sufficient. It's just plainly not. For a variety of reasons. But we'll continue and then we'll keep pausing. We know there have been some discussions surrounding the recent update. Oh, that is the understatement of this still young century. I guess it wouldn't count as young anymore. It's quarter away through this century. That is an understatement. We have heard you and are listening. For all those who look, they are listening. We know. We want to be open and honest about the balance changes we make and ensure we are involving all your feedback. We're introducing more processes internally to ensure we get your opinions and feedback early on before we make any final decisions. We do look at your feedback on a regular basis, track it, and keep it all in mind when we do look at a balance pass. Our number one process is to look at our in-game telemetry to see where each phobie is at. And we ensure that there are thousands of games feeding into that telemetry for each phobie when we do make decisions. For the most part, many of the phobies all fall into the balanced range, with still a few that we are tuning. Your voices are important to us, and we are actively working on refining and improving the game experience for everyone. Now, the implication here, when they say telemetry, there was a lot of focus on the win rate, and we've been told by the devs in the past that the win rate is not the only factor. They do recognize and attempt to account for the play rate, like how frequently a phobie shows up, when in the game it shows up, aka how impactful it is. Because if it comes out on turn 1 and is there at turn 40, it probably did more than if it showed up on turn 39, potentially. Because maybe turn 39 is when it turned the corner or something. Additionally, they have to find some way to account for levels. There's a lot of stuff. And look, I got to be honest with you. If anybody's out there thinking they are just going to straight up tell us what the algorithm is, that is just not going to happen. And I'm part of the content affiliate program. They don't tell me anything, believe me. I know probably, I'm not going to say less than other people do, but I certainly don't know more than the community at large. We don't get fed information by the devs at all. Everything that I spout is all just inferring based on public statements such as this and my own observations of the game and assumptions that I've made based on playing games for over 40 years. Why am I upside down? Because it's funny. It's funny to me, that's why. Sorry to derail, I just think they've never officially spoken about returning players and only new old ones. I don't know that they've even really spoken to those parts either. And you're not derailing. It's absolutely a concern because you have these 3 distinct populations of players. You have net new players that have never touched phobies. You have the existing players that are still here. And then you have retired players, for lack of a better way to put it, that maybe want to come back. And you have to decide and prioritize how you're going to address each group. So there are more changes that we're going to talk about for balance and how they're responding to everybody's response to the balance. I want to see more. I want to hear more from the devs. And again, they're not going to give us the specifics of, it's 0.789 times win rate times, they're not going to give us the specifics. What I want to hear and what I want to see is what the philosophy is. What are we balancing around? Is it around level 1? Is it around level 30? Is it a feels good number, like a target, whatever it happens to be, where, every phobie's viable, only these are the core phobies, and then these are the fringe niche players. Whatever it happens to be, we need to know so that we can understand. And I had this discussion offline, and I'm going to be very hyperbolic here. If the devs tomorrow told us, tomorrow's Saturday, so they're not going to be in, but figurative tomorrow. If the devs tomorrow told us that, hey, not only are Shove Shark and Innocuous balanced, they are the greatest damn thing to happen to this game, and you're all stupid. Like, they're not going to put it that way, but like, let's say that they produce a statement that is effectively saying that. I'm okay with that. Why am I okay with that? Because it means that they told us and are displaying, well, I mean, they've displayed to us already what their opinion of what good or bad is, but I want to hear it too so that we can really align the two. Because they may want something else and it's just not turning out the way they want it. It is okay, and I am of the opinion games are art, and it's okay for the artist to make something that not everybody's going to enjoy. Now, that runs against the whole idea of a commercial product, because if most people don't like it, most people won't put money into it, and therefore it will be more likely to fail. But it's okay if the devs want game A and all the players want game B, and the devs don't want to make game B. But if they tell us that, then at least we can all make the decision that we don't want to play their game and we'll move on. Whereas I think a lot of this does feel sometimes like we're getting strung along, where it's for every 2 steps forward, we're taking 3 back with some of these things, or in whatever amount of steps you want to look at. And that's the frustrating part, is that there's so many awesome things about Phobies, and then we have these other mind-boggling problems that may just be we're talking past each other, and we as the player base and them as the devs, where they want this, we want that, and they just can't be compatible in the same game. Or maybe that's not true, and it's just they aren't understanding what we're saying and we can't get there. There's a lot of potential options, and this comes up every time I discuss it, because we're arguing about balance, but balance is not the problem. I mean, it's a problem, but it is not the problem. The actual problem is, how do we make the game fun? And if the devs think they are making a fun game because that's the game they want to design, they can't make us have fun in a game we don't enjoy. And maybe we can't make them make the fun game that we enjoy. That's a thing that could be happening. So just throwing that out there as I'm digressing again. And we'll come back to it. I just love the game, but I have an internal struggle of how much can I care while making my money worth it, but also not stress about no lifing. Yeah, it's a valid concern. It's a valid concern. And I do think that Phobies leans into the poop socking territory way too heavily. All right, next part of the statement. Internally, there have been a lot of changes over the past year. One big one is that I, boss, have moved on from my role at Smoking Gun as CEO. I have decided to dedicate my time fully to Phobies now, and we are growing a new team to help with publishing, community, and marketing efforts alongside the development of the title. Slam the pause button, because that might be the biggest thing in this entire announcement. Full stop. First of all, that takes some enormous stones to go, I'm not going to be the CEO, like the top dog. I don't know exactly how Smoking Gun is structured, but like CEO is typically one of, or is the highest position in a given organization. And boss is electing to say, I'm not going to be the top dog anymore. I'm instead going to work full time on this game. Now, look, you could have whatever opinion about what you want, like about this, but this particular piece, the whole update, Phobies as a whole, whatever you want to say. But when somebody steps away from those sort of roles to then do this because they want to, that's a big deal. And I think it's commendable, and I appreciate what boss is doing. Now we're going to find out, again, like I was just ranting about a few minutes ago, what is the game that boss wants, and is that the game we want? That remains to be seen. I don't know exactly, given that boss was a CEO, and how involved was boss with the initial deployment of Phobies, with any of the updates, like how much of boss's fingerprint is on the game right now or at different points? And how much will it be going forward? And what does that look like? We don't really know. And following from that, if they're growing a new team, I want to set expectations here. And again, I'm not on the inside. I don't know. But if they're telling us now they're growing the team, that could be they just brought people on. That could be they're planning on bringing people on. That could be, well, we're thinking about bringing people on. And those are all different timestamps. What do I mean by that? Well, at the end of the day, if you out there watching this, listening to this, have a real job, imagine the last time that you had to train the new guy and how much extra work it was for you. Like, how much harder was it for you to do your own work while you're onboarding the new guy? Now, imagine the new guy's maybe the former CEO. I don't know what boss's working relationship was with the day-to-day stuff. But even beyond that, bringing these people on, bringing them up to speed, getting them into the Phobies ecosystem to understand Phobies, to properly do everything, it's going to take time. So the setting expectations part that I mentioned was we don't know where they are in this process because they don't tell us. I mean, we're going to mention a little bit in a moment as I continue. But the point is that we don't have the details on, like, how far along are they in this process? When they are done, we'll then be able to see the fruits of their labor, but that could be months from now. That could be a year from now. Especially when we're talking about marketing campaigns and things like that, which from many other games, and I've said this a lot about Phobies, that is the number one problem above everything else. We need new players. We need new blood. We need more people in the ecosystem. We need to keep people coming in because, like, chat brought up some good points about the quote unquote retired players. We obviously still want to support the existing players, the currently active ones. However, the largest population of Phobies players, hypothetically anyway, are the ones who have never even played Phobies yet. There are way more people out there who have never, ever, ever, ever even heard of Phobies, let alone downloaded it, let alone played it, let alone fell in love with it. There's way, way more of them than every single person who's played Phobies right now combined. Just mathematically. Full stop. It's inarguable. Getting those people in is super important for a lot of reasons, and I will highlight this one because I always do. You will attrit. You will lose people over time to a game, even if it is perfect, because the reality of the situation is real life still exists. And if I change jobs, I move, I have a child, the mailbox eats the cat, like, pick a reason. People will stop playing the game, and it will have nothing to do with the game or the community or any of the stuff that they actually have control over. Smoking Gun can't control whether I get fired tomorrow or not. Unless I guess I'm working for them, but I'm not. So, like, they don't sign my paycheck. And if that situation changes, that will have an impact on Phobies. At least my time with Phobies. And think about all the people out there that are playing Phobies. So you need to constantly be bringing in new blood because people will fall off no matter what, no matter how good the game is. And that's before you consider that the game is not flawless. So getting new people in, number one priority, super important. Number two priority is onboarding them and getting them up to speed appropriately, which we haven't touched on yet, but that's the quick 1-2 punch. So new team members, boss getting more involved. This is awesome. This is amazing. Hashtag buff rocket man. Time to put in an application. Yeah, right. I don't know what that means, to be honest, with hiring people for the title, but saying someone stepped down for Phobies. I don't know what it means either. Like, we don't know the specifics, and that's something, again, they're not going to tell us. They are comfortable telling us. But what's interesting to me is the reason I'm pulling this out of Discord is I don't believe it's posted anywhere. So I don't know when boss is effectively not the CEO anymore. It sounds like this already happened. So let's continue and see what the other details are. I'm very excited to be taking this new step, and I know that will give me 100% focus on Phobies. That's worded a little oddly, but not important. So please be patient with us as we find the perfect people to help us grow Phobies to what we know it can be. I do want to clarify that there will be no immediate update as this transition has been the most important focus for the last few months. Rest assured, we are working on a new update, and we are also still tuning and updating existing features, so we will have another update soon. Now, soon, let's be real. Soon is whenever soon happens. I'm fine with this, first of all. The fact that they told us, great. My biggest complaint about this, before we get into everything, is why is this not in client? Again, I don't think it can be worded this way, and I don't think you necessarily... It's weird, because if you're going to tell the community at all, it's like, why not put it everywhere? But this entire thing is clearly way too long to fit in the in-game client. However, I think this is enormous news, like enormous news. And not having it in client in some way, shape, or form, even if they just put a little blurb and say link to the forums for everything else, because there's big things happening at Phobies, it feels like a sin. It feels bad. That's my biggest complaint out of this. However, I will say that this is hugely impactful news, and I am very excited about this because this tells me multiple things. First of all, they are interested and invested, like not just financially, but like emotionally in Phobies. If Boss is willing to step down, I mean, it says moved on. I don't know what the new title is, so maybe step down is the wrong way to put it. That sounds negative, or too negative potentially. But if you're willing to give up your CEO job to work on the game, look, dude, they want this to work. Boss wants this to happen. And that is, I think there have been, I'm sure a lot of people have actually said it, but there's a lot of implied frustration, or a lot of implied statements in the frustration from the community that feels as though the devs don't care. It's like they don't care. They're just trying to bleed us dry. This is just to make money, and which, like, look, it's a business. Of course, they're trying to make money, but there is a degree of you're trying to make money and you're trying to bleed us. And the fact that they are willing to take these steps, to me, says they are invested enough in wanting Phobies to be successful and not just, we're going to make a gazillion dollars. To me, this says we want, and I've always felt this way, that they love their game. They do care about it, and they want it to do well. And they want it to do right by the players. And in my opinion, this is something that I've been waiting for them to say they're going to do, or something. No company wants their product to fail unless this is like the producers. However, there is a point where it's like, okay, is the effort there to make this thing happen? And I think this is what we're seeing. Why it took this long, we could debate, we could argue about, but who cares? It's finally happening. Hopefully, it's at the right time. So what's next for Phobies? Here is a sneak peek at what we're working on for the coming months. Scroll down here. Improved matchmaking. We continue to monitor this and try to balance arena matchmaking between a fair match and not too long of a wait time to get matched. This can be tricky, and the more users we bring on, the easier it is for us to fine-tune this further. We understand that for new players, getting matched with someone higher in rank can be frustrating. All right. I have an article that, if I remember, if I edit this, I'll put in the description or something, from years ago. It was from, I want to say, like 2004, somewhere around there. And it was discussing skill-based matchmaking in the like Xbox 360 era. It might have been later than 2004, but it was like 20-aughts. And it's talking about how with a population of 10,000 players, shifting matchmaking bans even just slightly could mean 10 to 20 minute waits for players. Now, for people at the top of the ladder right now who are already doing that, they're probably just scoffing and wondering, well, I'm already going to have to do that. But the reality is that looks bad. It makes the game seem dead. And that then has a negative spiral effect where people then go, well, the game's dead, so I'm not going to play anymore. And then it actually is less players, causing longer wait times, leading to players leaving, and you can see how the cycle goes. They are absolutely correct that bringing more players in is the answer. And I've always said that you need more people in the ecosystem. I know there are solutions that have been suggested to create bots, like higher level bots and things like that, and I'm not opposed to it. Personally, I've always felt that ladders are crap for judging true skill, and they just encourage and reward enormous game counts, typically, because you need an actual, I'm going to say elo, but you don't want true elo for a variety of reasons, but you need some sort of actual system in the background for rating. And I don't think we're there currently. So I'm not opposed to the idea of having bots because who cares? The ladder is a disaster anyway. That is another way to attack the longer wait time problem. I do think that improving the matchmaking bans can be done whether they do the bots or not. And they 100% do need to address this because almost all the time, go to the Phobies Reddit right now. There's probably something on the front page that says, I got paired against this person who's 1,000 levels above me or whatever. Why is this happening? Is the game dead? How am I supposed to win? Pick any of these and others. And yeah, you can win. There's plenty of examples. We watch tons of games from people who are literally stress level 1. They have all level 1 phobies, and they're beaten up on some of all Fears 2 and 3 players. Or people that are just stress levels, like over 100 stress levels above them. But it's still rare, and it's still frustrating. If they're not going to eliminate the level system, which they won't, that's just not happening. So if you're hoping for that, just forget it. It's not going to happen. They have to do something. They don't have a choice. There's no two ways about it. So this is good. Yes, we need that. Next up is season packs. We will be adjusting the season pack rewards further to give them better chances at getting new phobies. Now, we don't know how much, but yes, people have been complaining about the season packs, which feel worthless for the entire existence of phobies. There's no reason that this shouldn't be there. I would have loved to have seen something here where they mentioned a pity system. Maybe that will be what they do. Maybe they won't implement, for example, a pity system in regular packs, but then the pity system somehow accounts for your collection level and stuff and does it in the season packs. This is just me hypothesizing and speculating. I hope, because they do need something. They have to. Map updates. We hear you. Okay. Regarding some of the unloved maps, we will be rotating out some of the maps that have consistent feedback they are not liked, even though I personally love 2 of them myself and enjoy the strategy on those. Well, I guess we know why Lights Out, Attic, and Crypto Attic. What map is Attic? This must be like a playtest name. But Crypto and Lights Out are doo-doo. As the phrase goes, they are poop from a butt. And as opposed to poop from anywhere else. And yeah, you do not, I'm fine with those. I don't know what rotating out necessarily means, but if they are going to get the Agora treatment where they just take them out behind the shed and go pop, pop, then I think I'm okay with that. Just get rid of these maps. Are they augmenting the seasonal packs, giving what they deem more worthy rewards and not less of a grind to get? That's my interpretation. I think, so coming back to seasonal packs, because I just saw that comment in chat, I think they need to do both. I think it needs to be less of a grind. You need to reduce it from 6 games a day to 5 games a day, minimum. But until we know the specifics, it's difficult. Like, this basically just says, we're going to make it better. Great. It's ass right now, so what does better mean? Like, there's a world of things that could be. Similarly, for the map updates, Yes, good. Get rid of the crap maps. We have plenty of crap maps. We have tons of maps, so we don't have to have lights out literally every other week. However, when you say that we hear you, does that mean that the map design philosophy is going to change? Because this goes back to, like I was saying, designing a game that they want versus designing a game that we want. And where are we meeting in the middle? Are we picking a side? What are we doing? Because if Boss, who presumably wrote this, if Boss said that they like the map, and I think this, so, okay, here's one thing. The way I interpret Boss saying, even though I personally love two of them, I don't want people to go, because I also said this a moment ago, well, that's why we had all these terrible maps, because they like them. Well, yes, but here's the thing. I interpret the statement here as we are removing these maps due to community feedback, even though we like them, because we want to do what you want. And I think that's important to both recognize and make the distinction that they are doing things strictly based on, at least in this case, community response, community feedback, against the grain of the game that they want or intend to make, which could be good or bad. But I think it's important to call out and recognize in those scenarios. Whether this will extend to anything else, I mean, we've been talking about the balance changes, and we're going to get there again in a moment. But there's a lot of things to consider here. Personally, I'd like each week to focus on a theme of maps and tweaks rather than what is viewed as a healthy mix week by week. We don't know what they were choosing week by week, to be honest. Like, how were they even picking these maps? Because I got to be honest, stuff like Lights Out was showing up almost every other week, if not every week. It's wild how often it came up. I wish I was keeping track of it every week. You could probably go back and scrape it from random Discord posts, but that's an enormous amount of work, and I'm not doing that. Changing maps based on what community feels, despite devs feels the opposite of what the balance changes are done. Here's the thing, and we'll talk about this in more depth when we talk about the balance changes, but as always, balance doesn't matter. The balance itself, like the win rate itself, or the relationship to how powerful is this phobie compared to the rest of the phobies cast, or even things on the same tier or whatever, none of that matters. All that matters is that the game is fun. And when you're talking about something like fun, it's obviously very nebulous. It's very qualitative instead of quantitative. And I think that the devs are taking a very quantitative approach to the phobies. Obviously, they have their super algorithm, their super equation that's just going to spit out, this is good, this is bad. And I think you do need to approach it in that way if possible. However, there are certain things like play patterns that may be balanced but are not fun. And that's the argument I always have with every community that I've ever been a part of for many years now when they discuss balance. It is fine to talk about balance. You just have to set the specifics and the criteria of, okay, this is what balance means in this context. However, the important thing is not whether it's balanced. So now, if, to your point, chat, if we're going to be going into the territory of doing things based on the community feedback, there are more questions to be asked. Which part of the community? Because I had multiple people vehemently defend the current status quo and say it is the greatest the game has ever been and it is the greatest the game will ever be. Do not change it. Which is diametrically opposed to just about everything else I've seen. And some of my personal opinions as well. So the question becomes, who in the community are you listening to? It can't just be mob rule. or it shouldn't be, unless we're just going to say, well, it's the mob and it's more likely that they're going to give us more money, so there's our answer. This goes back to the idea of what is the game that the devs are trying to create? Like, what do they want to make? And then, do we like playing it? The mob brags about beating the whales. I mean, that may be a world that we'd have to worry about. But if the devs are now, not necessarily, because a lot of this is just inferring thoughts based on what information we do have. But if we are going to be going based off of community feedback and not necessarily what the devs like or what the devs think is correct or whatever, or how much weight does the community have versus the devs' super algorithm versus what the devs want versus whatever, it's going to become new ground, which could be good. It could be bad. It will be different, but that different doesn't mean better. It doesn't mean worse inherently. So we'll have to see. So that's just about the maps. We haven't even gotten to the balance part where the real ranting and raving will take place. More Phobies. We're currently designing more Phobies to add to our collection. These will be coming in a later update. When we knew the update was coming, obviously no anniversary update because of all the things that are going on. So, all right, new Phobies. I don't think anybody, we all knew Phobies were coming. I guess the only world in which new Phobies would not be coming is if the game was literally dying. So I guess this is your regularly scheduled sign that Phobies is not dead. It's not dying. We're getting new stuff. All right. Here is the meat and potatoes of this. We have community-driven balance changes. After gathering community feedback, we will be doing more balance changes and keeping you in the loop on these more often. Some of the ones we're still looking at that are on our radar are as follows. Rocket Man spotted. Doc Holliday, Billy, Les Chauvel, Shove Shark, Innocuous, Repeller, Unicorn, Clobster, The Collector, Rocket Man, Cecilia, Brutewurst Phantom, and Attractor. I'm going to read the rest of the statement. I want to stress that some of these may be a discussion with all of you versus a change. Some of the units that people have said are overpowered, for instance, are actually underpowered and have a lower win rate than we find acceptable. This can happen due to the nature of the depth and strategy and tactics of the game, though, and we understand that. Some deeper strategies are not used by all players, thus this can affect the win rate statistics of a specialized phobie, because they are not utilized when spawned in an effective manner. We always want to be careful when looking at nerfing a phobie that already has a lower than average win rate, as an example. This is also why we like to have thousands of games to draw our telemetry from. Our goal is to make balance changes at a pace that keeps the game fresh without disrupting the experience too frequently. Moving forward, you can expect balance updates to occur more often. We'd love more feedback on the above list. We still have all your previous feedback as well. I'm very excited to have the ability to just focus on Phobies now, and I hope I can spend a lot more time with all of you. Thank you again for all your support, feedback, and suggestions. So again, thank you, Boss. I mean, this was provided by Chew, but obviously was written by Boss. So shout out to Boss. Let's discuss some of the balance stuff. I'd be curious on what Rocket Man's stats would be had he never been nerfed for max level accounts. Now, surely something like this is a new mid-rank player complaint because punishing. Boston Chew and all the main homies of the GOATs, absolutely. So here's the thing. We clearly, and I saw people already comment on the win rate and stuff like that. Look, win rate is an important facet of balancing. And at the end of the day, if something has a 50% win rate, it is balanced. That doesn't mean that it is good or healthy. Those are different things. Good, I guess is the wrong way to describe it. Doesn't mean that it is healthy or fun. Because balance requires context. We need to define what balance means. And clearly, in Boss's eyes, win rate is going to be the primary driving factor. What most people are complaining about is the gameplay loop which is not addressed in this statement. And what most people, I think, want is the ability to use a wider swath of their collection. This is supplemented by the idea, and I think it isn't quite really addressed here, although it kind of is. And again, I'm going to be pulling parts out. That you don't want somebody to open a pack and go, great, I got a super rare, and they're all excited, and they go, god damn it, it's this pile of crap, whatever that pile of crap happens to be. Now, that could be because of a recent nerf. It could be because of the strategy or the depth of strategy that is being mentioned by Boss here. It comes down to, what are we defining as balance, and who are we balancing around? And I ranted and raved about this before, and we'll do it again because everything is the same and we're just, time is a circle, apparently. Putting aside the fact that balance doesn't matter, and we're actually talking about fun, let's step into the arena with balance. Who are we balancing around? And tangentially, like a 1A here, even though it's really like 0.9 or whatever we're at now. Who is deciding the balance? So we're going to listen to the community. Who in the community? So question 1, who are we balancing around? Are we balancing around the entire game? Every player at all skill levels? Because look, if you're out there watching this, listening to this, you are already in the like 0.1, maybe 0.01% of Phobies players. Most Phobies players, most anything, do not engage with content. Full stop. Yes, I understand streaming and YouTube and stuff like that. Obviously, I produce content. But the reality is that most people engage with stuff casually. They just log in, they play 2 or 3 games, and they're done. They're pooping while they do it. So I always call these pooping games, because they're literally pooping while they're playing this game. I hope they're pooping more than once or twice, because that would be a problem. And that's a different discussion. So most people are not engaging with it on the level where they really are going to get better. They just want to take their funny monsters and they're going to throw them at the other funny monsters, and then their lippy says some weird shit. Like that's what happens. Are we including those players as part of the balance equation? On one hand, why would you do that? They're pooping while they're playing the game. They don't know what they're doing. But on the other hand, that might be literally 95% of your player base. So do you throw them out and say, you know what? Start sweating, poop socking it, and get good. Just parry, bro. Like, is that what we're doing? Or are we going to bring them in and say, okay, you player who's played literally over 1 million games of Phobies probably, and you've been the top of Mount Ego for the last 85,000 seasons. Only Pepperidge Farm remembers when someone else was at the number 1 rank. Your opinion is just as important as I poop my socks 89. Like, are we equating those? Is there a middle ground? These are the questions that have to be answered, and I'm not really getting that answer out of these statements of how are we evaluating this? Personally, I take the StarCraft approach, which is this is a skill-intensive game. This is chess with way more pieces and way more things going on. Not all of them good, but there's way more stuff going on. Both in-game and out-of-game. And you don't rebalance chess around the worst chess player. You tell everyone, and StarCraft is like this too, this is a difficult game. Learn to swim and just drop them in the middle of the ocean. Now, I think there are ways to soften that, but I don't think that you do it by rebalancing Phobies around, and I don't mean this to be insulting, but like you don't balance the Phobies around the worst players in the game. There are issues that need to be considered because of the and this is another thing that I always harp on, because of the economic model of the game. people, and this is, in my opinion, Phobies is a pick counterpick game to a large degree. Meaning that if I put a phobie out on the board, you need to respond with either this other phobie or this other set of phobies, or you're going to lose. Now, that's before you bring levels into the mix, and that complicates things further. However, do you, to be fair, chess has been balanced around lowest common denominator before. I mean, that's fair. That's fair. It's not impossible. But it is, the point is, like, what is the general design philosophy of what do we want to do? Which are we going to use as our balancing measuring stick? So in this case, if we're going to say that we want to include, and this is where the collection piece comes in, coming back to the point I was trying to make before I started to digress, is that when you first start out the game, you just don't have access to everything, obviously. The whole point of the stress track is so that you guarantee you get certain types of phobies, like a freeze or a blom or a pull or an AoE or a heal or whatever, because you may not get them out of packs. That's another problem that needs to get fixed, which was not addressed in this statement. And I don't think it'll ever be addressed, but the economy in Phobies has always been the biggest problem. And that includes rolling it in with getting new players on board, because they very quickly will figure out the economy is a disaster. But we need to figure out, are we going to try and balance, like, hey, Cerberus is a common phobie that new players find oppressively powerful, but the answer is to play better. So that is a tough thing to just tell people. I keep saying Icy, I mean Ivy. Yeah, I figured that. It's tough to tell someone, and it's tough to hear, you're losing because you suck, not because, these things are unbeatable. But that may be the truth. And if that's the truth, is that what we want to do? Like, is that the kind of game we want to create? When I say we, it's obviously the devs, I guess the community too, but or do we want to try and rebalance it? Because Rocket Man has now been nerfed like 4 independent times. And I don't remember the last time I saw Rocket Man. I call it out every time because it is just like, oh my God, this phobia still exists. But it's clearly bodying people at low ranks, or it wouldn't keep getting nerfed. The numbers don't lie, right? They may fib a little bit, and we're going to touch on that. But if there are certain phobies that are running amok at lower stress levels, at what point do we say, who cares? Those players need to get better and they need to get more phobies. Or again, do we just say, no, that's not fair. They need help too. And I think that there are lots of different ways to tackle this problem. The community's come up with a ton. I've suggested a ton, not tonight, but in general. And I think there are ways to tackle this that aren't necessarily absolute as, oh, we're only balancing around some of All Fears 3, or we're balancing around every swinging dick that plays the game. We can find a middle ground. I just want to know what it is that we're targeting. And then it even expands to, okay, well, what are we balancing it around as far as the phobie cast? Do we want every phobie to be relatively, whatever that means, useful all the time? Because then we're going to get really homogenized, boring phobies. Because they have to be in order to be useful in most scenarios. The more interesting and fun a phobie is, the more niche it's ultimately going to be, unless it's just way more powerful than it should be. It's going to be a problem. And these are things that I don't know what we're trying to target. Because I could suggest a ton of things, but it doesn't matter. I mean, they're not going to listen to me personally, but how do we define that? Any of it. Another issue is, since they want to do more frequent balance updates, the Hearthstone devs, which you could have whatever opinion you want on Hearthstone, but you can't call that an unsuccessful game. That was a hugely popular game that made Texas with a dollar sign. $11 billion. It made a fuck ton of money. No ifs, ands, or buts. They said that it was a problem when they buffed things. They had people quit just because stuff changed. It didn't matter whether it was good or bad. It didn't matter the reason, the justification, how warping it was to the meta, because there are way more, again, remember I said earlier about new players, there are way more people that don't play the game. There are way more people who are casual about the game, every game, than there are hardcore players. And if you're watching this, you're a hardcore player by definition. So if they're risking people leaving the game, this is a risk. And it's obviously incredibly difficult to nail things this complex on the first try. So I am anxious to see what they do. I'm hopeful, but like, this is a risk. This is a risk. When your battle pass is your best revenue driver, there's only so much you can do for a new player tailored economic change. Yeah. I mean, it's not even, I don't know if their battle pass is the main driver. I mean, I'm sure it became a big portion of their income, but they have a pack-based system that is incredibly punishing. Like, it is bad. Because it's not just the packs, it's also the leveling system. So you could improve the odds on all the packs, and it would still be bad because people would have all the phobies and then effectively couldn't use them, because they would be way under leveled compared to where the rest of their stuff is. Now they introduce more catch-up mechanics and stuff, but at the end of the day, it is just an extreme monetary investment, or an even more extreme temporal investment to try and get up to speed with a lot of these things. And I think that you have to consider that when you're discussing balance, because if you're saying, oh, well, Attractor's a problem. Oh, Unicorn's a problem. Oh, Innocuous Shove Shark is a problem. Here are the answers. Well, how available are those to the average player? Are they available and at the appropriate level? And that is, again, I'll repeat it, balance doesn't matter. If Shove Shark Innocuous is beatable, it doesn't matter, because if it's fucking boring and nobody wants to play against it, no one plays. There's tons of people out there who are aware of chess and do not play it because they find it boring. It doesn't matter how balanced chess is. And yes, I know there's a 5% difference or whatever it's at between going first and going second, but like, chess is a game of skill, right? It doesn't matter that it is balanced. You have identical pieces. There are still people who find it boring because they don't like the gameplay pattern. There's other reasons too, but like, the point I'm highlighting is, if Shove Shark Innocuous has a perfect win rate, whatever that's defined as, and people don't like it, that is independent of whether it is balanced or not. Because it could be balanced, but still be boring as fuck to play against or with. And even on top of that, there are people who love it. So we're going to tell them to go fuck themselves? Like, what are we? We got to make a lot of really tough decisions here. And that's why whenever I see this from anyone and they go, we're going to involve the community. Who in the community? What portion of the community? What percentage? What tiers? Like, are we talking like the low skill level? Are we talking the low skill, low collection level? Are we talking the high skill, low collection? Are we talking high skill, high collection? Who is going to do this? How is this going to be interpreted? Because I said it in tons of other streams and tons of other feedback threads and tons of other emails and tons of other videos and posts and whatever. There are some terrible suggestions, and I'm sure the devs can pick and choose which ones. But let's say a lot of people want a terrible suggestion. How would, and this is going to come back, and I love that the devs that boss put out this statement, because this was, and I've said problem number one for a lot of things, but this was probably It wasn't at a lot of people's list, but it really was. It was the phantom number 0 problem of there's been no communication up to this point, or virtually none. We finally get something in this, which is fantastic, but it is not enough. We need more. We need more explanations of how exactly are we going to move forward. Okay, we're going to have things more frequently, but not too frequently. All right, well, if we're going to be Goldilocks, what does that look like? How is that going to play out? If we're going to involve the community, how are we going to get involved? Is it just going to be, again, I said it at the beginning, if we're just going to post it in Discord, that's a problem. There need to be feedback threads or discussions, trails, notifications, pings, pop-ups, links, whatever. Whoops, sorry, hit the mic. All of these things need to be in client. Because you can claim all you want that, the majority of the Phobies community is in Discord. Okay. Guess where 100% of the Phobies community is? In the goddamn game client. You can't play Phobies without the game client. Put it in the game client. Please. It's got to be in there, especially if you Smoking Gun are serious about including the community for these sort of things. You need to build out a way for the community to communicate with you through the game. Content consumers are 0.001% of the community. I mean, yeah, I'm speaking to a subset of the people who are even in Discord, and Discord is a subset of the overall population, both due to turnover, as well as if they are going to get this, wherever it was up here, this marketing push. If we assume that it works, and 6 months from now, we start getting a big, big push for Phobies, we get an influx of people, some will go to the Discord, they absolutely will. Some will go to Facebook. Some will go to Reddit. Some will go to Blue Sky. Nobody's going to Twitter anymore. Twitter sucks. But every single one of them, it has to be in the game. Put it in the game. Like, real talk, just 5 gold or 5 coffee or whatever. That can't be a big deal. Like, it just can't be. To give every player 5 coffee for filling out the feedback survey that is linked through the game. Will it be great feedback? No, because you do need a back and forth for these things, but I've always said that I think there needs to be like a player council where you select people based on whatever criteria that you announce or don't announce, who cares, and use them as your test bed, because this is the same thing that happens in card games. You can test all you want, but there are way, way, way more players than there are testers and devs. There just are. How many people could possibly be on Smoking Gun's team? I promise you it's not 20,000. The last I checked, it was like, I think somebody posted a screenshot and there were like 20,000 people on the ladder or something like that. If I'm making up a number, like, who cares? It's more than they have on their team by orders of magnitude. We can't, listening to 20,000 voices is insane. But there's a lot of numbers in between whatever their team is and 20,000. Pick a number. Get that many people together of players in the community that you trust, that have demonstrated they are invested, that they want a better game, and then figure out a way, have them sign an NDA. It doesn't matter. Whatever you got to do to get their feedback so that they can contribute to what's going on. It's probably about 50 people in total for engineering, art, design, QA, production, and likely 4 or 5 designers at most. Sounds about right. I was going to say 4 or 5. I mean, I wasn't going to, like, count all the other people. Because we were talking about just, like, if we're talking, like, strictly balance and design and stuff like that. But, I mean, I've worked with games where it was literally 2 designers. Literally 2. And one of them was only part-time. And no, it was not. It was not a small project. Good timing, Luffy. Overall, I think this is a great state. Personally, I'm taking a lot of this as positive. It at least gives me some hope. And we will see what actually materialized. Because, okay, step 1, you talked. Great. Step 2, walk. Give them the benefit of the doubt. Don't give them the benefit of the doubt, but at least they're talking to us. And we got talk. Can we get walk? And we'll see what the walk is. Because it's great and all to do this until we get the implementations. It's the argument that I would always make, again, when it comes up to balance. There was a statement from either pre-launch or right around launch where one of the devs said something to the effect of, oh, we want all the phobies to be balanced. We want them all to be useful. And it was thrown around as a statement to say, oh, well, this is what the game is designed around. And I said, well, that's all well and good, but they said that and they did this. So we'll see what they're telling us this. What are they actually going to do? I think the public post is amazing. I have questions, but I'm glad to just hear things. Absolutely. I mean, I've been personally down in the dumps about Phobies for a while because it felt like there was nothing going on. I'm glad that them saying that for the last several months they've been working on essentially building the infrastructure, and that includes team members and things like that, to move the game forward, tells me, like, that gives me a lot of faith that they're moving in the right direction. And if you want to infer even further, I mean, it's possible that they're going into debt to do this, because you got to pay these people. But the game is doing well enough that they are able to bring on additional bodies to do this work to secure future revenue. You don't invest in a soon-to-be dead product, right? Like that's silly. So that tells us that Phobies is doing well, or well enough, and that it has potential to do better. I like, what more can you ask, right? Just personally, I need returning player functions. That is, like, they've made no mention of that. And I don't think that is, I'm not going to say it's like not on their radar, but I've seen no mention of them talking about that anywhere at all. So I don't know what the plan is. I do agree 100%. I just don't know what they're planning on targeting. So I think I've screamed enough about this. I think I've ranted and raved. I'm sure as soon as we're done, I'm going to think of something else. But I'm curious what everybody else is thinking. Let me know down in the comments. Come by the live stream. If you're interested in tournaments, run Monster of the Week. We got viewer games. Hit up my Discord. Link for that in the description. Excuse me. That's going to do it for this one. So as always, everybody, thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. And tune in next time for more Random Thoughts.